just a land acknowledgement. Today I am presenting from Maskwacis Ermineskin Cree Nation located on Treaty 6 territory. Sue Ross is presenting from Calgary, Alberta, located on Treaty 7 territory. And we honor and acknowledge those who lived in and cared for these lands. We pay respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of these places whose histories are connected to this land. And I'd like to say good morning and welcome everyone to our session, Real Life Community-Based Research. So here's our abstract. Sue, would you like to say anything?
Well, I think we're covering everything in the session anyway. I kind of added it just so that everybody has it for later on if they want it. But yeah,
Okay.
I think we just go straight on.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so introductions. Sue, would you like to start first?
Yes, I would like to start first. Really, it's been such an amazing experience for me to work in Maskwacis and to work. I mean, I really shouldn't be here. It just happened by chance, although, of course, nothing is really by chance. It's been a great experience for me to be working with the community, and I've learned so much. I have so many thanks to give to the community, to the elders we've worked with, and Luwana and Manisha have been very important in my life over these years that we've worked together. I think it's actually quite a lot longer than 5 years, Manisha. But yeah, thank you. I'm a researcher from the U of A, and although I'm living in Calgary, and I'm retired, so this has been my full-time job really for the last couple of years, doing research with Luwana and other people in the community, and Beata Sedora from the U of A, who's here today, I'm pleased to say. We've done a lot of work together. So we have mainly been doing qualitative research with the community, and the community's driven all of the topics and what's happened in the research. And so it's a very different kind of research from probably what some people have been doing. So thank you for having us anyway.
Okay. I guess I'll introduce myself. Hello, everyone. My name is Luwana Listener. I am from the Maskwacis community. I'm a member of Maskwacis Ermineskin Cree Nation. And it's just been a real blessing for me to be able to do community-based, strength-based work in my community, because I see that it has like a direct benefit and it's meaningful for the community. So it's a blessing for me to do that. Sue, is there anything else you would like to say about this slide?
No, I wondered if I wondered if we should have all the people introduce themselves, but I think that's probably overwhelming now. We actually have more than a single number of people. So maybe we'll go on, but or what do you think?
Well,
We
I don't
have the
know.
names.
Sure, we can do that. We can have everyone introduce themselves if you feel like it, I guess.
Maybe it's just too complicated with 12
Yeah.
people.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's just continue.
Yeah.
Okay. So the goals of our session this morning, is to explain how we came to be working in Maskwacis and to discuss the research that we did with and for the Maskwacis community, as well as we're going to provide an overview of the Sohkitehew research program and describe some of the research that we've done. So what do we hope to cover today? Here are some of our objectives. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Okay, Sue, would you like to start?
Sure. I think the thing that we really wanted to talk about was the ways that research has changed over time, because we all know the history of researchers coming into Indigenous communities and coming and taking samples, blood, tissue, and things like that, and went away, carry out the research, and the results weren't necessarily shared with the community or indeed used for the benefit of the community. And we've been very aware that we needed to do research in a different way. And we've been involved in it. The community's been involved in the research, as you'll see in a bit. And we have the most amazing Elders Advisory Committee who've really ensured that we do things properly. And the researchers are respectful of the community's practices and beliefs and feeding back the information. And of course, Luwana actually lives in the community, which gives us a really good contact with the community. All of us who've worked from U of A or U of C, and that includes Beata, Sedora, have been involved in the community over several years and are also known in Maskwacis through a number of different projects. Thanks, Rama.
Okay. I just wanted to add, like, with the older way of doing research, it caused a lot of trauma in the community. So for us, one thing that was important, like Sue mentioned, it was to have our research community-based, and that it does benefit the community, as well as our research is strength-based. So we're looking at the strengths that exist already within the community. So it was important for us to move away from those older ways of doing research, so that we're looking at those strengths that exist in the community, as well as having the community direct and guide our research. Okay, quantitative and qualitative research. So there's two types of research. Our research would be considered qualitative because we're gathering data and we're doing interviews, and we're making observations on the research, whereas quantitative relates more to numbers and measurements. Sue, would you like to add anything about this slide?
I don't think so. I think we've covered most of those things. It's very important with qualitative research, though, that we can sort of explore people's feelings and experiences, and a much wider range of real life experiences. So that's a very important, well, you'll probably see when we talk about our research as well. Thanks, Luwana.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about OCAP next, which is ownership, control, access, and possession of data. And we're going to play just a quick 6-minute video related to OCAP.
We hope.
Can everybody still... Hopefully, yeah. Can you see my screen?
I think so.
Sue? Yep. Okay. Oh no, it says my internet is unstable.
First Nations people have always understood the value of community, the importance of respect, and the need to protect our resources for future generations. And today, one of our most important resources is information. First Nations people have always been information gatherers. When we track and hunt or gather food from the land, we're engaging in information gathering that has a direct and important impact on our lives. First Nations people understand that information isn't just about numbers and surveys. It's about culture, identity, traditions, and self-determination. That's why the First Nation Information Governance Center was created. Since 1996, its mission has been to uphold the values of OCAP, a set of principles designed to protect First Nations ownership and jurisdiction over their information, and ensure that First Nations people are the stewards of their own information. OCAP ensures that First Nations people have ownership both individually and collectively as a community. It puts them in control so that they can decide how it is used, by whom, and under what conditions. It ensures that they have the right to determine and define access regardless of where it is held. And it defines possession, ensuring that they have the power to use their information for the benefit of their own communities. Possession is key to making ownership, access, and control possible. Taking together, the First Nations principles of OCAP embody one important idea, that First Nations people understand their own needs and are in the best position to govern their own information. The right of First Nations communities to own, control, access, and possess information about their peoples is fundamentally tied to self-determination and to the preservation and development of their culture.
First Nations Information Governance Center is a national body that supports First Nations from across Canada in advancing our interests around information and data management and governance.
Their job is essentially to assert First Nations ownership, control, access, and possession into the data collection and survey research, which is being done in the country. I think their primary goal is to make sure that First Nations are directly involved in every aspect. And in fact, they have taken the lead in a couple of major surveys in the country.
Basically, our mission is to support local and regional capacity for data and information collection, interpretation, analysis, and translating it into knowledge, and then making it available to leadership for good, sound decision-making, evidence-based decision-making.
For First Nations, this is important because it helps create a standard for their relationships that they have with researchers, and it creates an ethical space where they can facilitate the conversation around research and making sure that it's culturally appropriate and safe for the community to participate in.
Though OCAP is trademarked by the First Nations Information Governance Center, it is owned by the First Nation communities, and it helps them and guides them in the work that they do in research.
OCAP helps First Nations to have the self-determination because the information is theirs.
The First Nation themselves are in the position to determine how their information is utilized, accessed, gathered, and interpreted. I think that's one of the important elements about OCAP is that First Nations have control of their information. They need to be part of the interpretation of that information as well.
It's important that they have the final say because ultimately this information is about them.
Achieving recognition of our sovereignty and exercising our sovereignty is essentially the fundamental goal, and the purpose for exercising that, achieving that recognition and exercising that sovereignty is really to improve the quality of life of our people and to return to the balance in the government-to-government relationship.
We've got to have the ability to measure our well-being in terms that make sense to us. And we actually want that well-being described in positive terms. The RHS, or the Regional Health Survey, was an attempt by the federal government to actually gauge the well-being of First Nations across Canada. Being that we are a very diverse population and of huge geography, it's really challenging from an Ottawa perspective to actually measure what's going on in the communities.
First Nations people understand that we're living in an evidence-based world. And in order to affect positive policy change for our communities, we need to have that credible data that we can quote and refer back to in order to gauge where we're going to go to next in the future.
First Nations people need to be the stewards of their own information because we know best what is the best processes for us, and we can manage our own information.
That information is crucial for us to also do our research. If we don't, then we don't have accurate information. You can't plan for a cohesive, healthy future.
Governance matters. being able to actually define where you want to go and how you're going to get there is key. Being informed along the way is a very important aspect of that. The destination and the journey, two parts of it. The roadmap is what's going to get you there. And good information, good data management is actually the roadmap to the future.
Okay. Sue, would you like to,
Yeah.
sorry, it's like I'm losing my voice. Would you like to start our discussion on OCAP?
Yeah. We wanted really to include that video because it's a really quick summary of how data can be used by Indigenous people, and that it doesn't just get shoved in a file somewhere. And the OCAP is really making people consider the partners in the community, which I think is something that wasn't always done. Of course, that's all what they were talking about there was all about actual hard data that's collected on people. And we wondered whether you would like to give us some feedback about both the video and the way it sort of makes you think about your own research, if indeed you're doing research, or the ways that you use data. I didn't explain that very well, Luwana. What do you think? Luana's the one that does all the difficult parts.
I guess what we're asking is if anyone feels comfortable sharing like their thoughts on the video, on like how OCAP relates to research and maybe its importance. And if anybody can hear some meowing, that's my cat Ringo. Okay, since there's no questions, Sue, why don't I ask you? Can I ask you, like, what do you think, why do you think OCAP is so important for Indigenous communities?
Well, it's bringing back the data to the communities for the community's benefit. I mean, it's really, a lot of the work they do is about public health and things like that. So it's really identifying need and responding to need. And so I think it's a very important point. And the really most important point is now that I think it's very unlikely, well, I really hope it's very unlikely that researchers will now go and collect data which may or may not be, their access may not be legitimate in any case. And it's also important that I think that we've been struck while we've been doing our research about the strengths of Indigenous communities and the caring within Indigenous communities, and that's just not the kind of research that was being done in the past, or it has been done and not been really recognised for the value. Whereas now I think OCAP's really made everybody wake up and say, oh yeah, we shouldn't just collect this data. This is sort of government data and stuff like that. Data shouldn't be collected and stuck in a drawer somewhere with no response being made to address any issues that are found. And I think OCAP it's been such a sort of an amazing movement to make that change. And I think it really has changed the way people think about data in Indigenous communities. But I mean, I could be wrong. But I think even just the little movie is very helpful. It's got this comment here.
So I'll read the comment.
Mm.
So this was from George. I am in the US. I know there was quite a controversy here regarding a study done around the Havasupai people that took genetic information and then passed it over to a different study on a topic that hasn't been improved by the tribe. Can you address that? So what I think is OCAP helps to address that, where it puts the responsibility on the researchers and the community to have the data controlled and owned by the community. So the researchers can't just come into the community, take our knowledge and data, and then leave. And so with the existence of the OCAP principles, it makes us more aware of those things that happened in the past and those unfortunate research experiences that did cause trauma. So this is a new way of doing research, of making sure that the data is owned and controlled and accessed by the people that it's being directed directly where it's directly coming from.
So I think this is a really good question, though, because I mean, this is at the root of the whole thing, isn't it? It's not just numbers data; it's actual historical data, and although we've got OCAP, I don't know how well that is. I mean, it's not policed in any way, and I think people can still, I was going to say, make big mistakes about the way they use their data. But I do think that at least there is this knowledge now that it's not the right way to behave, to not give the benefit to the community who has provided the wherewithal for people to undertake the research. Now, how you can possibly police that, I have no idea. And really, it depends on the researchers being well informed and honest and owning up if they don't really understand OCAP. And I think there was a huge drive earlier on with OCAP to make everybody have OCAP training. I don't know how that then translates into the publications that we write. We always talk about it in our publications, but I don't know that would be the same in every person who's doing research with Indigenous communities. And obviously these people didn't, but that could be a long time ago. If it's recent, it's pretty scandalous.
Thank you, Sue. I had another question to ask you about OCAP, if that's okay.
I may not know the answer.
How has OCAP affected our research or guided our research?
Yeah, I think I think we've really adhered to those principles right the way along, and but I'm not sure that we actually were aware that we were adhering to them before you and I went on the training.
Yeah,
I did. I think we found we're going there sitting nodding at each other saying, oh yeah, we do that.
yes.
So I think it was, it must have been in the air somewhere that we should do things better than we were doing, or but better than some people. And I'm not saying that we do everything well. We don't. I'm sure we make mistakes all the time, and we're always willing to try and sort them out if we've done something wrong. But I think that for the biggest what should we say, check on our research is having an Elders Advisory Committee who are definitely not backward at coming forward to tell us if we're doing something wrong. We really rely on their honesty and their wisdom to make us understand if we are doing something wrong. And yeah, it's been a very important part of our research, but we've been doing more qualitative research than actually just collecting numbers. So it's easier for us to feed back to the community, because we're doing research that can be understood in the community. It's not with fancy statistics or anything like that. So it's much easier to understand and much more relevant to day-to-day living in Maskwacis and other Indigenous communities. It's what's really good though is it makes you remember that data can be data. The way they talk about OCAP, it can be all sorts of those sort of issues. So it's I've just seen a note here about ethics guidelines and applying for ethics. Well, everybody has to apply for ethics if they're doing research. So I mean, you wouldn't be but in this case, we also have to get approval from the community to do the research in terms of discussing with the elders in particular what we're going to be doing. So I think ethics and OCAP are, the things that underlie the research, but I think OCAP was particularly different in highlighting the fact that data is kind of a commodity, and that it should be used used to help the people who the community. It's not just for people to write papers and become famous. So I think it's been a turning point really for a lot of researchers, and I'm sure there are ones who just ignore it.
I just wanted to add that for me, like using OCAP with our research and helping the OCAP principles to guide our research, like I'm really grateful because we're able to help to change the perspectives of research in the community. Because when we did start, there was resistance when we said the word research. It's like a wall would go up, and people would kind of take a step back, I guess. And so for me, it's a blessing to be able to help to change that perspective and to say that now the community owns the data. They control and access, they can access the data, they have possession of the data. The data isn't going away somewhere where it's not going to help the community or be beneficial or meaningful to the community. It's staying here, and it helps to empower the community and give that power back, because the data is being owned, accessed, controlled, and possessed by the community where this data is coming from. So that's been really good for me. And it's just a different way of, like, it's a newer, better way of doing research to ensure that that data isn't going away, that it's being of direct benefit to the community. Okay, is there anything else you would like to add, Sue, or should we go to the next slide?
Yes, let's go to the next slide. I'm sure some of these issues about ethics and stuff will come up later on again as well.
Yeah. Okay, so with our research, the overall aim was to address the health issues of the women in Maskwacis as they age. And so we had two main topics, and that was menopause and aging well.
Can I just make a shout out for Beata here?
Yeah, definitely.
Because Beata really was the first person who got us started on research. and in Maskwacis, and the way it happened was really strange, and it seemed to be sort of almost too many strange coincidences that happened in the long run. And so we ended up starting our research by talking to women about menopause in the community and doing community meetings about that, working with Maskwacis Health Services and other people in the community. And so it was that was really the way we got started, and we never really intended to look at numbers, but so OCAP was probably a bit of a side sort of event for us. But yeah, sorry, carry on then, Luwana.
Okay, so it was important for us to work with the community to identify women's perceived health and wellness needs as they age. So we have our, like Sue mentioned earlier, we have our Sohkitehew Elders Advisory Committee, which began in 2015, and it includes 7 elders from all 4 of the bands in Maskwacis as well as Pigeon Lake. And it's just been it's been wonderful having this committee and having this these elders, and it's been a blessing to have them share teachings with us and to help us guide our research and to make it more relevant to the community. So it's been a blessing to have that committee. And yeah, so we were working with the women in the community to share our findings. And that was like the main, that was important for us to share our findings in some way so that it's meaningful for the women in Maskwacis. And I'll go to the next slide. So this is just some more information on our research methods. So we were working with the women of Maskwacis to identify health and wellness topics that are particularly important to them as they age. And we wanted to use like the strength-based perspective to see what strengths in the community exist around aging and aging well. Working with the women of Maskwacis to identify their specific needs as they age, as well as developing information with and for the women of Maskwacis to help them adopt strategies to age well. And so it was important for us to make sure that this information was widely available in the community. And we consulted our elders committee in all aspects of our research. Yeah, Sue, would you like to say anything?
No, I think we're going to show some examples of how we've tried to provide the information. So we should probably leave that to a bit later.
Okay. Okay, so earlier in our presentation, we were talking about the 2 different types of research, the quantitative and the qualitative, and we mentioned that our research is mainly qualitative. So we were working with the data and the stories of people. So we have 4, well, working with women in Maskwacis to identify health and wellness topics that are particularly important to them, work with the women to design research addressing their own needs, develop information specifically based on the women's own experiences to help them and others to age, and more importantly, to distribute that information widely about the findings.
I think the next slide shows what we did.
Okay.
It should do.
Do you want to go over this slide, Sue?
Sure. So we started off by working with women to find out what we thought what were the important health issues, and we did sharing circles before we I think that was actually, we had two elders working with us at that early stage, but it soon became apparent that we should work with people from each of the communities. So we first of all held sharing circles, and from those sharing circles, we tried to identify important health issues. And at that point, I think it was when we asked one of the elders if we should have an advisory committee, and she thought it was a really good idea. And so she brought in her the people that she thought would be good from each of the different communities. So that was really a big step in our development, having 7 women elders who were really committed to the work of health and wellness issues for women in the community. So from there, we went on to design research addressing their needs. And our research was all qualitative. So we needed to develop research specifically applicable to older women to identify ways that they used to age well. And then this is really a description of the first study we did. And then to use those strategies to help other women of Maskwacis. So it was no good just working with women in sharing circles. We had to then somehow work out what the strategies would be that would help the women, and then get that information directly to the women. And we really had to use at that time we had to really use low tech kind of solutions, and so we developed. It sounds a bit silly, but we developed things like pamphlets, and we set up meetings in community settings. One of the community meetings was, I think Luwana would agree with me, was the most amazing, which coincided with a community meeting that we were having, and one of the Samson community meetings, and we were providing lunch, so everybody turned up at lunch, and we had over 100 people, which was absolutely gobsmacking.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
But it was really good, and it got people talking about women's health, and we had men there.
Yes. Yeah, that was nice for them to hear, the presentations related to aging well and the findings of the research.
And then we've done more sort of traditional things like BAM newsletters, getting our sessions written up in the newsletters, and the Maskwacis Health Services have pamphlets and booklets that we've written, and we've actually taken them to quite a few meetings. We went to a school one time, didn't we, Luwana? Actually, maybe twice. No, just once. And so here we were standing with our menopause leaflets alongside, people who were talking about gangs and.
That was really nice. It was a really great opportunity to engage with the community. And I remember there was maybe 1 or 2 students who would come over and they would take the pamphlets, and they said they were going to give them to like family members. But a lot of the other students were just like, oh, menopause. So they didn't really have a lot of questions for us, but that was nice
Yeah.
to be there and to share our research with the students.
Yeah. I think that points out one thing, you can't just, I mean, it's great having Luwana in the community, and, it opens doors all over the place if you have somebody who's already known in the community. And, the fact that we work with Maskwacis Health Services and things like that gives a bit of sort of credibility. This was really the first big study we did, and so it was a really good start. Well, it was the second study we did, really, and we really did. We worked very hard at being in the community and being involved with community members, and we went to a book fair as well, a school book fair, and so all the mums were there, and they they enjoyed the menopause information too. So yeah, we worked hard at it, but it wasn't hard work. It was great fun. Every time we were out in the community, it was fun.
Yes, I agree. Okay, I'll go to the next.
Yeah.
Or actually, let's see. Nicole shared a comment related to OCAP, and I'll just read it before we go to our next slide.
Mhm.
OCAP is needed to ensure data is used in a good way and that nations control how it's used. I ran into an interesting circumstance at my previous job. We were a provincial body and gathered data from our members, which included data about clients accessing services, and many were First Nations. They were from all across Canada, though even as a provincial organization, the agency chose not to share the data about Indigenous clients because they couldn't abide by OCAP. This is challenging because this data collected could drive program funding and development, but out of respect, it was just shelved.
Well, that sounds like people were avoiding the responsibilities that they should have been addressing. I mean, if you're going to set up a huge and important piece of, well, I suppose it's the province, the OCAP should have been considered at an early stage. I'm just wondering what it was they couldn't abide by OCAP. Was it just the feedback and that implementation stage that they couldn't comply with? I don't know. It sounds pretty terrible though, if they're putting huge money into really what could be useful data, and then just deciding that it can't be done. Seems to be pretty terrible, but hopefully that was not too recent. Yeah, and I think OCAP sometimes can be very, even though training has been provided on OCAP, I think there's sometimes been resistance to really just going that extra mile to try and make things happen. I mean, I think it would only need to make that work somehow, because it's unfair if the data is collected and then never used, because people put time and effort into that, and that study looked as if it would have made a difference to the way that communities were receiving. Well, I don't know what. I mean, it would have been something health, I suppose, but it does seem that there is still an awful lot of unfairness in national or even provincial policies that could be dealt with. I don't know how, but yeah, it's an interesting point though.
Okay, I'll go to the next slide.
So we're going on, oops, it's my screen again. We're going on to look at an example of our research. And you want to do this, Luwana?
Sure, yeah. One of our first projects related to aging well was holding sharing circles within the community. So we had 3 different sharing circles. And we had 36 community members attend these sharing circles, and the elders attended as well. So we had elders as well as elders from our advisory committee. And so our discussions were related to aging well, and we structured our sharing circles and guided them around the medicine wheel. So we shared a really wonderful quote related to balance and wellness. And then what we did is we asked the sharing circle participants, what does physical wellness mean to you? And then the next one would be, what do you do for your physical wellness? So we did that for all 4 of the aspects of wellness: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And we had flip chart, like easel paper in flip charts. So everyone can see everyone else's comments, or comment on them, or add more to it. So it was truly like a community event, because like all the strategies that came out of the sharing circle came out, from the participants. And sometimes there was more than one participant who shared that strategy, or they added more to it. So that was really wonderful. I led the discussions and then Sue helped to record the comments on flip charts. And then for us, it's important to provide a chance to come together as a community. And so we had tea and coffee, and we provided lunch from a local caterer in the community.
Can I make a quick comment about the flip charts? It's really old-fashioned, as you know, to use flip charts. But gosh, it really worked in that setting, or in those 3 settings, because people could see what was being written down. They could, comment and contribute, and they knew that that was what was being recorded. We didn't record on tapes or anything. We recorded only on the flip chart, so they knew exactly what was being discussed, and whether, if we didn't get it right, then they would certainly tell us. There would be others who commented on their experiences, and it worked much better than I would have thought. Now, I guess there are ways now that you would do it on a wall board or something like that, but it was good, and it was good to be standing around as well and talking about it. It felt as if it was a really collaborative effort on everybody's part. It was really, really good, and each of those 3 meetings were completely different. It was interesting to see the way that people address the same points in a very different way. So that was really useful. And I wouldn't throw away my flip charts if I were you, or at least the stands.
One thing I wanted to add was, since our work is strength-based, using the strengths that exist in the community, for us, when we were thinking of wellness, we thought, wellness isn't just physical wellness or mental wellness. It includes physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And so we wanted to use the medicine wheel because it's familiar in the community with, those medicine wheel teachings. And then the idea that we are made up of 4 parts or 4 bodies, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So using those strengths in the community to help come up with strategies or draw those out. Oh, sorry, hold on. Okay, yeah, to draw those strategies out, that was really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it probably wouldn't work in every setting, but with the most of the people who were at the meetings were elders and certainly older people. So it really was a very suitable method to use.
Yeah.
Even though we didn't really know that before we started it.
Yeah, it was putting like our research question into a framework that was relevant to the community, relevant to the elders, and it was easily they were able to understand it because they're aware of these teachings already, and the that our 4 aspects are interconnected. So it was really nice to use a framework that was relevant to the community to help to show those strengths that exist within the community. Okay, so like we said, our data was recorded on flip charts, and so we had the participants share strategies related to aging well, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so a lot of the strategies that were shared they're very practical, and they could be easily applicable to people's lives. Like for physical wellness, one of the main strategies was keeping active to keep well. And so we had participants share stories about like their grandparents and how they are still active, and they do work out in their yard and they do work in their home, and they keep active to stay well. And for mental, one of the important strategies was learning new skills to nourish your mind. And some of the participants shared that it's, that it could also be like an intergenerational activity with like grandchildren and grandparents, and just learning from each other. And then we had emotional, and it was important to the participants that we are able to express our emotions and to actually allow ourselves to feel them. So like if we feel like laughing, we should laugh. If we need to cry, we should allow ourselves and give ourselves that space to cry, and then also to be happy to express these emotions. And for spiritual, one of them was practicing Nahiawak traditional ways. So smudging, praying, going to ceremony, participating in ceremony. So those types of things were strategies related to spiritual wellness. And then on in our last sharing circle, the concept of balance came out kind of organically. So we were talking about the 4 aspects, and then one of the participants started talking about balance and finding balance in all 4, and just being really aware of yourself and in tune with your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual sides, and being able to notice when you're out of balance and using strategies to help to attain and maintain your wellness and balance in life. And so after we had these results, after we got these results from the sharing circles, we worked with our elders committee, and we had several meetings where we read through the flip charts, we read through all of the shared strategies in the sharing circles, and then the elders went through and they looked at the strategies, and they told us what they thought was important for the community to know. And one thing that was really great is they suggested putting these strategies in a book that will be available in the community. And I'm just really grateful for the guidance that we received on that, because it's just so amazing. They included Cree words. So we have a glossary of Cree words, and there's Cree words scattered throughout this Aging Well book that we created. So they also wanted it to be relevant to the community. So I went to the Samson Museum and Archives, and I got a bunch of really beautiful pictures from the museum and added them into the book. So the idea of having that book came from the elders, and then they guided us, and they helped us to put this book together so it's relevant and meaningful for not just the women in Maskwacis, but for the whole community. And then what we did was we had 3 community feedback sessions where we shared the results with the communities. And it was really wonderful to be able to give back what we were gathering, and share it with the community in a way that is meaningful. Is there anything else you would like to add to this slide, Sue, or do you want me to go to the next one?
No, I don't really need to add anything, but it just, I'm so pleased to be here and listening to you talking, because it really pulls it all together.
Thank you, Sue.
I wrote the slides, but Luwana did the thinking.
And then, so for the discussion, the findings of the research, we turned them into information cards. So we have 5 different information cards, and we have emotional wellness, spiritual wellness, mental wellness, and physical wellness, as well as balance. And so what we did is we kind of came up with like a definition for each, as well as strategies that relate to each of the aspects of wellness. And then, like I said, we completed an Aging Well book, which was completely guided by our Elders Advisory Committee. And it incorporates the findings of the research. And like I said, it includes Cree translations and archive photos of women and family of Maskwacis.
So I'd like to add a point here, because I think we started doing the sharing circles in something like 2017.
Yes.
And it's just been published last year. So it just shows you how much time and effort you really need to put in to get to that final hurdle, which, really to us wasn't really the main point. The main point wasn't to make a publication. The main point was to feed back all the information to the community. But it makes it the only reason to do a publication really is because you can get to a wider audience than if we just talk in the community. Then it's there's a limit to how far that information can go. I don't think there's anything in these suggestions we made that wouldn't be suitable for everybody to learn about. So the publication bit seems like a big thing, but really it's not so much.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to add another thing. And Sue mentioned that our research, it took a while. Like we did our sharing circles a number of years ago, and then our paper was just recently published. And I just wanted to say that, when you're working with Indigenous communities, it's important to how to build in and create meaningful and or trusting and respectful relationships. And in order to have those relationships, it does take time to build those. So when you're doing community-based research or community-led research with the community, it does take time because you can't just come in to a community and expect everyone to trust you and to respect the research and to be involved. You have to create that foundation, and people have to know that that they can trust you with their data and with their stories, and that you're going to be respectful. So it does take time. So I just wanted to add that point in there. But that time it's valuable and meaningful because it did help to deepen our research.
And the other thing I do want to say is the thing that really I remember most is sort of those elders committee meetings, and they were such fun, and we got so much work done.
Yeah.
Every single one was different, but every single one was really a great pleasure to be there. And yeah, I learned more in those meetings than I ever learned at university, I think.
Yeah, it was a blessing, both to work with people in the community that were so passionate about aging and aging well as, the elders, just to hear their teachings and to be able to sit with them and listen to them just speak Cree, like that was a blessing. So it's just been really wonderful to do this research and to be able to work with these elders and have them guide and direct our research. And yeah, it's been really great.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the best ways of doing research with Indigenous communities? So like I mentioned before, developing those trusting and respectful relationships is very, very important, especially like with the community, because it like for me, it's a big thing going into a community and asking people to share their stories, to share their data and their knowledge. And they have to be able to trust you and know that you're going to use this data in a beneficial and meaningful way that will be able to positively impact the whole community. And like I said, researchers must be respectful of the community's practices and beliefs. And for us, it was really important to involve community members throughout every single aspect of our research. So from coming up with like the research question to engaging with the community to, you know, analyzing the data and putting it together in a way that's meaningful. So, like I said, our elders have been involved in every stage of our research, and that's been a blessing for us because they've been able to help us to guide it and make it so it's relevant to the community. Find out what the community's research interests are and work with the community members to make sure that you are asking a valuable and relevant question. And it's also important to become an ally with the community. Sue, would you like to add anything?
I think one of the other things was that we tried to involve, for example, things that you wouldn't think of, but things like catering. We would get somebody from the community to do the catering, and there were quite a few people who did catering, but we always found them really helpful. And you build up quite a relationship if we're bringing people in to do a larger meeting like that one we had in the one with the 100 people. So that's been our practice right the way through, is to have a local caterer, to local as in band member, to do the catering, and it's always so enjoyable to eat real food.
Yeah, and it was important for us to be able to give back to the community as well. not just with sharing data, but other ways,
Mhm. Yeah.
related to our research. And so for the second slide, what are the best ways of doing research with Indigenous communities? Find people in the community who may be interested or passionate in research and are respected locally. Find a research topic that is important, relevant, and meaningful to the community. Try to be culturally aware and correct, and also show respect and humility when working with the community. You will have no idea what impact previous researchers have had on individuals and their communities. Like I had mentioned earlier, with those harmful practices of the past, it did create trauma and like just these negative experiences. And so it's important to show that humility and respect, because you don't know what experiences other people have with research. It could be just harmful, it could be negative or positive. So it's just being respectful when you're conducting research in the community, and being, I guess, aware of the traumas that could have happened with the negative aspects of research in the past.
I
Is there
just
anything
thought,
you'd like to add?
yeah, I just thought you have to be brave, particularly if you're a real outsider like me. You have to be really brave, and you have to be very humble about the way that you approach the research, because I make mistakes all the time in the community, and the elders are great at pointing it out, so you always learn from the elders from that point of view. But it's a learning experience, not just about the research, but about interacting with people on a level that you're not always altogether comfortable with. Although I have to say, being on a computer like this is much more uncomfortable than anything I experienced in the community. But you do have to be willing to make a fool of yourself from time to time, and to always apologize if you think you have really made a real mistake, even though you probably will have been told about it by the time you notice it. So it's a really valuable learning lesson or learning experience for every situation you get into. But it's just a little more sort of noticeable when you are entering a world that really isn't your own. But everybody should do it at some point. Well, except that some people might do it really badly. I probably do it really badly, but I've learned a lot, an awful lot.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've learned a lot as well with this research. I think I can safely say that this research has changed both Sue and myself. Like it's changed our lives.
Yeah.
Like just the way that we view life, the way that we view aging, the way that we view like finding meaning in everything, and just that balance in life. Like it's helped me, like hopefully like it creates like this pathway for me to be able to age well and be a good elder in the community. Yeah, I'm hoping.
Luana's our baby elder.
Yeah, and it's just been a real blessing to be able to learn from the elders, to be able to learn from the community, and also to be able to empower people, to say that their perspectives, the knowledge that they have is valuable, and it can help to change other people's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're going to open it up now to any comments, questions, or criticism. Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask, or anything they would like to share?
Can I ask? Sorry.
No, go right ahead.
I was just going to ask, I don't recall who made the comment about getting
Oh, yeah, ethics.
Yeah, the well, no, the one about yes, it was about the ethics, but it was about accessing, or people, Indigenous people being able to access that data that wasn't permitted because of OCAP, I think.
Oh, yes, okay.
That OCAP is a barrier, but I don't
Yes,
remember who it was.
that was Nicole.
Okay. Can I get in touch with you afterwards, Nicole?
I'm not sure if she's still on. Oh, yeah, she
Okay.
is. Yeah.
Well, I'll drop a note to that Manisha, and she can forward it to you. How's that?
Sounds good, Sue. Sounds good.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Okay, well,
Now we get real questions.
okay. Let's see. So we
I
got
have a question. How did you build trust and this relationship, this bonding with, with Maskwacis? It's not just your 36 people in sharing circle or your Elders Advisory Committee or the 100 people or Maskwacis Health Services or going to school fairs, book fairs. But how did you build this bonding with the community you're conducting research with and in?
That's a really great question, Manisha. One of the ways for us to build the respectful and trusting relationships with the community was to be in the community. So one of our I guess focuses would be to be involved in events in the community. And so like Sue mentioned, we went to an event at the high school in Sampson, and we had a chance to speak with the students there. And then we went to several different workshops and events with Maskwacis Health Services or even with MCC. So one of the ways was just being in the community and being involved in the community.
Yeah, I'd like to say that also there are the 4 bands, and we always presented in each of, well, we tried to present in each of the 4 different areas in the community. And we had a big range of different experiences in the different communities, but you really somehow get a better picture if you actually go to the place where the people are, and yeah, I think people feel more comfortable in their own setting. We went to all sorts of different meeting places around Maskwacis and Pigeon Lake, and so I think that was important too. The fact that we didn't expect them to come to us all the time, and well, we didn't actually have a place to be us anyway, but so that was probably helpful. It didn't seem like it at the time, but it was probably helpful that we had to go to the different places. And I think we drew people in that way as well, particularly for if we were having one of our meetings with a sort of a meal of some kind. It's not coercion, by the way.
I just wanted to also add, Sue mentioned that we didn't have a place to be ourselves. We didn't have an actual office that we would meet at regularly. And so for us, we considered our office the tables in the Ermineskin Mall. And so it was really nice. We would meet there, we would see community members, we would see elders. And so it was a good chance to be able to be directly in the community while we were having our meetings.
Yeah, that was really fun. And then of course COVID came along, which was a kind of a death knell, really. But yeah, it was we've not had meetings since, have we? We always do online now.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, that was a really my husband couldn't understand how we could possibly do work in the middle of a mall.
Oh, Valerie has her hand up. Yes, Valerie.
That's it. I'm Scott Noah. I'm just curious about your age group and talking specifically about elders, as opposed to doing research with young people. So, because you approach elderly people a lot differently, and you didn't put I don't know if I missed the age range, but you start thinking about, like, I'm 64 and I'm starting to get into that category of being classified as an elder now. I'm also very well educated and articulate, in both cultures. So I'm just wondering if how as Indigenous researchers that we should be thinking about the different ages, because we wouldn't approach or do the same things with young people, I suppose. And then the other thing is, I suppose, on reserve as opposed to in an urban setting, I think the approaches you'd have to factor in those things. I mean, definitely Indigenous research methodologies includes that whole aspect of making sure that, there's a meal. So it kind of mirrors our Nahio sensibilities of how we do things. So, and I think I was thinking about that because you talked about the flip chart, as opposed to the computer stuff, recording things on a computer or recording things on video. And I've done some research and did recordings. The elders were quite comfortable to go be recorded and to go on video, this one-on-one. But it was just interesting about those factors and yeah, that's what's coming to my mind is, would I do it and approach it the same way as if I was doing it with a teenager or with an elder, with a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old, because our young people are so tech savvy now, Yeah, and some of our elders are even tech savvy. Anyway, that was what was coming out for me, is like, it was an interesting thing because it almost positioned our elders into kind of like an old-fashioned type of way of doing things, because that's what they were more comfortable with. Yeah. Anyway, that was interesting to me. Thank you. I don't know if that was a question or not, or more of a comment or observation.
No, I think you're very right though, about all those comments you made. We did at one point try to get together, sort of younger, or work with younger people, but it never really came off. Well, in fact, the study we were hoping to do didn't get funded, but then second of all, it would have started around, and which we'd have done it anyway, I think anyway, but despite the lack of funding, but that was just about the beginning of COVID, and we just couldn't bring young people together into community meetings at that point, which is what we thought we would do. And so that, you're right though. I mean, I think now it's even more different, because maybe young people don't particularly want to go and meet together. I don't really know. I'm not really, I mean, I'm 70 and I haven't really got any young people contacts. So I agree though. It's definitely a different era now. Who was going next?
I think that was the only question or
Oh,
comment.
it's a good one though. It's one I reflect on quite a lot.
There are some, let's see. Sorry, I need to leave. Thanks for putting this together. Look forward to more new information about Indigenous health. So that was Leona, and then Jessica said, thanks for sharing the strengths of using flip charts. I've never thought of that before. And then George shared just a comment, patience seems important, especially for someone like me. So those were some of the comments that were shared in the chat.
Luana, maybe we can have a closing talking circle where each participant can say one word or a couple of words or sentences. What stood out to them, in addition to what's already been written in chat?
Okay.
I can begin. For me, I just find fascinating hearing about the process of research on reserve, on reserve with Indigenous communities. You really made it engaging for the community, not just having elders advisory circle. You were in the community, like having no office. And every time when you present, you bring in more information about the process and different perspectives. And I'm very grateful to all the attendees in this sharing circle, because, you all bring in a lot to the information which is presented. I think, when you bring in like Valerie sharing, George sharing, Nicole sharing, and I think as an instructor or a presenter, we want to learn something more or get more deeper. So, and make connections too. I'd like to pass to George. So after we finish talking, we can pass to somebody else in the circle. Go ahead, George.
Well, first of all, I want to say apologies for interrupting your flow a little earlier, but I really appreciate the OCAP principles. I don't know exactly what we have in the US that's similar to that, or if anything, and you've motivated me to find out. Thank you.
Thank you
And
for
I'll
sharing.
pass. Yeah, I'm sorry?
Thank you for sharing, George. That's awesome.
Thanks. And I will pass to Valerie.
Great, thanks. I think I'm kind of a little bit familiar with the OCAP principles, but I just wanted to share that our university, Blue Quills, has a research ethics policy that's now being used or accessed by mainstream universities. So that may be something, George, that you might want to look into. It goes right on our website. But I also know, I think MCC and RCC, they're developing research ethics policies. And I know that the U of A has come and accessed our research ethics, which is really steeped in the ceremonial aspect. So that includes the spiritual, ancestral at all levels, witnessing of and approving the research that's going to be done amongst our people. Thank you.
Valerie, who would you like to pass on to next?
Oh, sorry. I see Olya.
Hi. I'm not sure.
What stood out to you in this past 1.5 hours?
I think, sorry, I'll turn on my camera so everybody can see me. I'm also almost lost my voice recently, so I can't talk as much. So what stood out to me is as always, it's the whole process where when you do any research, especially with Indigenous communities, it's done in a particular way. And so for me, we just had, not me personally, but I know my manager, she went to Maskwacis to the library, and CIBC came to make connections with the Indigenous community there. And the way they did it, like she was just standing there and he was like, you're doing this wrong, like just thinking to herself, like you're just like you're not asking, you're just doing things in your own way, but you're not asking the community, and you're not considering their protocols and their needs and just the way they do things. And I think with anything, like I was really interested in this webinar to just to see the different perspective on how things are done, and even asking permission, like I guess that's what stood out to me was you need to ask permission to use the research. And I was like, yes, of course, you'd be like, in my head, I was like, yes, of course you would need to ask permission for things like that, because when you do research like that, that's so personal. You can't just, dissect the information the way you want and present it the way you want. You need to have not only permission, but support from the people who's done research and whose data has been used. Thank you.
Who are you passing on to, Olia?
Nicole, has she spoken? Nicole Orr?
Yeah, go ahead, Nicole.
If Nicole is not there, then Jennifer?
Annette, if you want to say something, you're welcome to. Okay, she left because she joined in late too. The data analysis is a ritual.
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi. So, my apologies for being very late for this session. From what I was gathering from when I did join in, not only the importance of asking, but the importance of whatever is being recorded or is always done in a good way, and honoring that person, and always because it's based on research, right? I'm a student, so I'm still learning a lot, but I'm trying to incorporate different ways to learn from others too as well. So I really appreciate this session.
Can I respond to that?
Go ahead, Sue.
Well, so I became 70 last year, and I never thought I would reach that age. And but I'm not learning any less now that I'm 70 than I was, way back, 40, 50, 60 years ago. So don't ever think that you're not going to be learning. And learning is one of the most frustrating and joyful experiences. So don't try to put yourself down for learning. That's an absolutely must for the rest of your life. And this is a great way to learn, to be involved in research, because you really have to be able to step out of your comfort zone all the time to find things that are really important. That sounds a bit sort of abstract, but I hope when you're 70, you'll remember it.